Colin, you suck.
Excuse me, Commander?
I said you suck.
But, why?
Because you never do what I want you to do.
But all I do is follow your instructions.
Well, just ask anyone. We all agree you suck.
How dare you? I feel so hunted right now.
Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages,
Recently, Capcom gave us a little bit of information regarding the most and least hunted monsters in Iceborne, and I thought it would be fun if, based on what happened with our anniversary event quest last year, we speculated on what could happen if we wind up getting equivalent event quests here in the future. So, for the uninitiated, last year we had two special event quests in the form of the Greatest Jagras and the names Levisioth, because Great Jagras was the most hunted monster in base world, and Levisioth was the least hunted. They both had some changes going on with their fights, and most notably, they were technically arch-tempered, orange outline and everything, including massive damage increases, and hey, they would also drop ridiculous amounts of decorations, just like in piles, all over the damn floor.
What is that? What the fuck is that?
So based on this, and assuming that this week-long sample size of the most and least hunted monsters in Iceborne during the week of April 17th to the 23rd is indicative of the game as a whole, you could be forgiven for thinking maybe, just maybe, we are due some event quests in the future that hold the Greatest Zinogre and the Greatest Scarred Yian Garuga, which I guess we can just say is Greatest Yian Garuga, as he would just be arch-tempered Yian Garuga anyways, which is also scarred. I don't know. But what could that entail? Well, any number of things depending on how they want to handle it, which I think could be a little bit different based on the two specific monsters in question.
That's not ominous.
I'll start off with a little more basic, more simple, more likely stuff, but I do have a few more out there and cool ideas that are not only possible, but would be extremely awesome if they did happen, at least in my opinion. Starting off with the easy then, the decorations. I feel pretty confident that if these event quests come back, then the decorations dropping off of certain attacks gimmick would also return. And at least for one of these monsters, the way it would return is pretty obvious. Yian Garuga, who in this case is also scarred Yian Garuga, okay, it's honestly super confusing to me. Let's say he definitely gets the scarred Spitfire move because he also gets the scarred stuff, where he just chunks out a bunch of little fireballs out in a cone. I think this move would be perfect for dropping decorations, as you could just make each individual fireball make a little shiny decoration on the floor. It would be perfect, and it would mean that it latches onto a significant move of the character of the monster, like Great Jagras' decos coming from spitting up meat, and the Greatest Levisioth's decos coming from the droplets of lava he spews at the floor while he flies over.
So long and thanks for all the fish.
Zinogre, on the other hand, is slightly less obvious, as he doesn't have any proper projectiles in that sense, at least not in that number. Though you could just give him a blanket all lightning bolts, create decos like both the individual lightning bolts and the Thunderbug projectile attacks too. I think that would work pretty well. As far as actual fight affecting modifications, one thing I could see happening, especially after our recent glimpse at Arch-Tempered Nemiel, is more internal fight affecting changes as opposed to actual major new moves. Things like starting in zones they don't normally fight in, or sleeping in new places. These I think we can expect pretty reasonably if we don't get other larger changes. But if we are talking larger changes, I see a couple ways to take this too. For Yian Garuga, my favorite idea for a just attack augmentation that isn't an actual new move is to take the Spitfire cone move and turn it into a full 360-degree circle around him.
I fell into a burning ring of fire.
I think that would be awesome. Maybe make his head slam into the ground attack combo an extra time or two, as it can already catch you off guard pretty effectively the way that it works currently. Or even make his backflip combo into another attack, or vice versa, a different attack comboing into his backflip. If we were to move over to Zinogre, however, I think some of the changes are a bit harder to quantify like that. I think you could definitely make his individual charging sessions a bit shorter, give the hunters less free damage time, hell, maybe even have lightning fall in more of a Kieran style pattern while this happens, where it hits the entire monster, so you can't actually interrupt him safely. Maybe up the projectiles he creates when he fires out thunderbugs, or little things like that. Zinogre here is a little bit harder for this in my mind, because we got Stygian Zinogre already recently, who, at least in Iceborne, sort of just feels like the Zinogre Plus model, with his thunder waves and his insane combos, but does that mean that there is nothing else for us to draw from for cooler Zinogre moves?
No. There is another.
And this is where I'm going to get a little more out there with something I think is super unlikely to happen, but maybe it could. The two monsters we are looking at here today, Yian Garuga and Zinogre. What do they have in common? I'll give you a few moments to think about it before the grand reveal. For ages and ages, the entire Monster Hunter community has been under the impression that Capcom definitely won't add a specific class of monster to the new world, because this class of monster is just too unrealistic and generally doesn't follow the quote-unquote rules of other monster classifications. This specific class of monster is the Deviant, and this is what Yian Garuga and Zinogre have in common. So what if, because of the two monsters already assigned to these quests by these circumstances, by the sheer will of the community and who we have hunted, what if the Greatest Zinogre event quest and the Greatest Yian Garuga event quest essentially had Thunderlord Zinogre and Deadeye Yian Garuga?
Shut up and take my money!
For something as out there as Deviants, there is no better way in my mind to somehow get them into the new world than as these types of specific event quests, basically calling them out as the arch-tempered versions of Zinogre and Yian Garuga, respectively, with little other explanation needed, as event quests are allowed to do whatever event quests want. It's just sort of the rules of event quests. So maybe not quite the entire monster, no, maybe that might be a little bit too much to ask them to port in for this event quest, but why not just take inspiration from them and mess with our existing monsters in a way that references these really cool, already created monsters? Something like having Zinogre start charged up with an ultra-charged mode, and then give him his Thunderhorn uppercut attack and have more of his physical moves affected by his elements. Maybe not even the new attack, just have his physical moves affected by his elements. It's still a Thunderlord reference without having to add a whole new animation. You don't even technically have to change his colors to actually be like Thunderlord, though of course I would love that. I love Thunderlord Zinogre's colors, but I think it would totally be enough for them to just be like, hey, this is sort of what it would be like to fight that Deviant in the new world, especially because it would be the Deviant moves added onto the already changed Iceborne moveset. Like Yian Garuga, for example, could have his head slams fire out rocks like Deadeye Yian Garuga, and have his red eye trail on one of his eyes to allude to Deadeye as well, while still whipping out his Spitfire move and his head missile attack from Iceborne.
That sounds awesome!
And I think, if maybe not quite to the extent of actually having the full-on Deviants in the game, armor sets, weapons, and everything, I think it is at least a possibility that we will have these kinds of changes that reference the Deviants that already exist, playing off of ideas that another Monster Hunter game has completely and fully implemented, but in a setting where it doesn't affect the lore, and actually explaining Deviants isn't necessary for the context of the situation. So to wrap things up, it's entirely possible that we do just get two quests, one for Zinogre and one for Yian Garuga, where they deal a ton of extra damage, drop decorations occasionally, and have a new move or slightly changed move here or there. But at the other end of the spectrum, I think Capcom could choose to take this situation to their advantage and use the fact that these two specific monsters are the chosen ones to create something really special and give us, if not the Deviants themselves, then at least some moves and fight changes that remind us of the Deviants that some people really love, as that would be super cool to me, especially in the context of the event quests here that are meant to celebrate the history and continued enjoyment of Monster Hunter. I think it would just be perfect. Alright everyone, I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and these have been my thoughts on the possibilities of our future greatest event quests. Do you like any of my ideas for changes? Do you think any other monsters are likely to take over as least or most hunted anytime soon? Like if you like the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. This is the brand new outro to tell you all the things that you do that we love, so let's start with something simple and say, oh, we love your eyes. When they're watching us play video games, when we make a bunch of jokes that are kinda lame, or when they gaze upon our failures as we try to kill the monsters or report important news about the Kingdom Animalia. Rage, Cotton, and Hollow are all here, talking about the things you want to hear. So if you want to be the first to hear, like and subscribe and the bell and we'll cheer. Some of you are patrons, even though we are all the noobs and you're the pros. There's nothing we can do to thank you. No, really, there's nothing we could possibly do. Goodbye.